Hello everyone! Welcome to another episode of The Rigolini Report. I'm your host, Chris Rigolini, Director of Bands at the Highlands Ranch High School. Today's episode is about the Harmonic Series. Before we get into that, I have a couple of reminders for you. We'll be meeting with each of my classes every Monday for about 20 minutes. We're using the 7-period day schedule for the second half of our Mondays. Next week, we do not have a Monday meeting because you have a 4-day weekend. Congratulations! You deserve it. Take the time off, spend time with your family, and stay safe. Do check in with your Google Classrooms and with all of your teachers for any updates or assignments that have been posted. Our joke of the day today is brought to you by Beethoven himself. I use the hashtag in front of everything before Twitter. Or at least that's how I imagine he would say it. I'm very excited about today's topic. Our topic is the Harmonic Series, also known as the Overtone Series. The definition of the Harmonic Series is a sequence of sounds in which the frequency of each sound is an integer multiple of the fundamental, which is the lowest note, of course. Now, what that really means is that we start with a single pitch, and in sequence, we build higher pitches on top of that fundamental pitch, or the lowest pitch, the original pitch. In math, they call this the divergent infinite series, which is represented by this formula. You can see in the formula that the original pitch or tone is divided into half, then a third, then fourths, then fifths, then sixths, and so on infinitely until the end of time. We do the same thing when we talk about the harmonic series in music. We'll get to that in a moment. First, we need to understand what sound waves are and what hertz are. Hertz is the measure of frequency that a wave has per second. So how many times that wave occurs per second. Sound waves look like this. And when we divide them into half, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, we get our harmonic series. Now, sound waves are created a couple of different ways. They can be created by playing on a string, like on a piano, or on a violin or a cello. Or they can be created by a column of air, like in our wind instruments, playing a clarinet or a trombone, for example. We could also create sound waves by striking the head of a drum as it vibrates up and down, or by using our vocal folds. As they vibrate together, they release sound waves into the air. So we use these sound waves all the time, and it's all based around the same physics principles that you would see in physics class. We divide those waves to create increasingly higher pitches or sounds. Those pitches are measured by those hertz that I mentioned a minute ago. Let me show you what I mean on the violin. So the first part of the harmonic series is we take the original tone, which is the full length of the string, and then we divide it in half. That should give us an octave. So if we take our E string, for example, on the highest part of the violin, and we stretch it its full length from the bridge down to the scroll, then we should get that E. If we divide it in half, if I place my finger where I think halfway through is, we should get another octave of E. There it is. So you can see that I've placed my finger, and I'll try and keep the spot, halfway between the scroll and the bridge. This has divided the full length of the string in half. This is basically how the harmonic series works. So we have the principal note. We have the first part of the series, the first interval of the series, which is an octave. Then we have the next interval of the series. If we divide the string into third, we should get a perfect fifth. And you can see that I have just simply divided our string into 1/3 and left 2/3 here to resonate. That's the basic function of the harmonic series. It's really easy to see it when we use a string instrument because it acts just like our sound waves. So let's take a look at a couple of musical examples of the harmonic series. In this chart, you can see how the series is built off of that lowest C, which is way down here on the piano. Now, as we move higher in the series, the notes get closer together. The first 4 octaves of the series, or the first 7 intervals, give us a fifth, a fourth, a major third, a minor third, and a major second. It sounds like this. We have the principal note, the octave, divide the string in half. The fifth into thirds. The fourth, which brings us back to the original octave, which is dividing the string again. Major third, minor third again, but this third is supposed to be a little flat. And then a major second, which spans the first 4 octaves of the harmonic series. From there, they get progressively closer together. Now, I mentioned that second minor third was a little flatter than normal. This is called the subminor third. It means that it's a few cents flat of where our equal temperament instruments would normally be. What a cent is a smaller unit of measure that we use in music to tell if something is sharp or flat. That's the most basic way to explain it. This brings us to a conversation of tuning. True temperament versus equal temperament. On our pianos, we use equal temperament, which means that we round to the nearest full integer. So we don't allow for the sharp or flat cents. So for example, when we get to that third octave, we have a major third, minor third again, but it's supposed to be really in between. Instead of, it's a little too sharp for the true harmonic series. That's the true tuning, or the true temperament. That's why students, when we ask you to use your ears in tune, sometimes you feel like you might be playing things a little bit lower, like for example, that third. You might be playing it a little bit too low and you want to bring it up. Or for example, the fifth that usually rides a little too sharp in equal temperament, and we want to bring it down for true temperament. Here's a chart that shows all of the intervals that we just talked about spread out over the harmonic series. You can see that as the harmonic series gets higher, the intervals get closer together. The reason for that, if you go back to the idea of our longer violin string, is that as we cut the string into halves and thirds and fourths and smaller intervals, there's less room for that string to vibrate, which of course creates a higher pitch. Here's a chart that shows the full harmonic series, or at least the first 30 intervals of the series. We can see that by the time we get to the 30th interval of the series, we have expanded our intervals from octaves all the way through to major and minor sevenths. That's how we come up with all these different intervals that we always talk about in class. They're all based off of the harmonic series. Let me show you another example of the harmonic series. We used a string instrument first. Let me show you on trombone what it sounds like when we move from different partials, which is the intervals in the series that we play into the mouthpiece, or we buzz into the mouthpiece. I'm able to play the first 6 partials of the harmonic series for you on trombone. Some people can go much higher than I can. We'll first start with the lowest note, which is also known as the pedal tone. It's the low B flat, or the principal of the harmonic series on the trombone. The next one would be the octave up. That's usually our tuning note. Then a fifth. Then a fourth. Then that major third. Then the minor third, which brings us up to the high F. From there, the intervals get smaller and smaller and closer together. Let's put this harmonic series into more of a context. You've heard me play bits and pieces of it on the piano and on the trombone, but here's a piece of music that the entire opening is built on the harmonic series. This is Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra, which is a tone poem. It's played here by the Berlin Philharmonic, conducted by Gustavo Dudamel. Take a listen to this opening phrase. great sounding orchestra. You can hear that the piece actually starts with the pedal tone, with the principal note of the harmonic series. And they let this ride in the low strings and in that timpani part. Then Strauss builds from there and follows the series exactly. The octave, fifth, fourth, third, and then he plays that note. Interesting. Well, you might be saying to yourself, he broke away from the harmonic series. He's allowed to do that. Well, not necessarily. He followed the harmonic series, he just switched to a different principal note. So, we have, I'm using C here, the principal, octave, fifth, fourth, major third, and then he goes to a minor third, which technically is the next interval of the harmonic series. But it would sound like this if we continue to ascend. It would be that major chord. But instead he decides to make it minor. Take a listen again and see if you can hear all of the things that I was just talking about. Examples of the harmonic series can be found throughout every piece of music that we have played in Western musical history. This particular example just happens to be very obvious. It works perfect for what we're talking about today. The harmonic series has shaped our musical landscape over the course of history. We start with that basic octave, then we move to the fifth, then we move to the thirds, which helps us build our major triad, which is the basis of all Western music. If we invert those thirds, we get this: minor third, then a major third, which is our minor chord, our minor triad. It's so cool. And if we were to follow the series exactly, if we did octave, fifth, fourth, third, 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 then a second, we would have a dominant seventh chord. Well, that about wraps it up for us today. If you like what you've heard, check out the links in the description. I linked Bernstein's lectures, as well as that Dudamel recording. If you need to contact me for any reason, or you have a suggestion for a joke of the day, please feel free to email me at cregolini@dcsdk12.org. Join us next time when we talk about composers of the Romantic era. Until then, happy practicing!